Summary of the Reader by Bernhard Schlink. Michael Berg, who is narrating, talks about his relationship with a former Nazi jail guard when he was a teenager and what happened afterward. In part 1, Michael, who is 15, is on his way home when he gets very sick next to a building. Hannah Schmitz, 36, a renter in the building, saves him, cleans him up, and brings him home, where his doctor tells him he has hepatitis. After a few months, Michael goes back to the woman's apartment to thank her because his mother told him to. But as she gets ready to walk him out, he can't stop watching her get dressed. He runs away because he feels bad about thinking about her after being caught. A few days later, though, he goes back to Hannah's room to say sorry. He is glad that Hannah is not mad at him and just tells him to get some coal from the cellar. He does that, but when he comes back, he is covered in coal dust because he moved a pile of coal by mistake. Hannah gives him a bath and woos him. Then they start having an affair that lasts for a long time, including this routine of showering and having sex. Later, when Hannah becomes interested in Michael's studies, she makes listening to him read aloud to her a requirement for sex. Soon, reading together before they shower became part of their routine. Michael plans a bike trip for the two of them during his Easter break. Michael plans their route on his maps, orders food from menus, and checks them in at the inns as mother and son. Hannah just lets him handle the details. After making love in the morning, they spend the rest of the day riding bikes. Michael gets Hannah food one morning before she wakes up and leaves her a note. But she is very angry when she gets back. This shocks Michael a lot. She hits him with a belt and then starts crying because he left without giving a reason. Michael says he left a note, but Hannah says there wasn't one. Michael makes new friends when he starts the 11th grade school year. One of them is Sophie, who he has a crush on. When he starts going to the pool with his classmates, he can't decide whether to spend time with Hannah or with his friends. Every time he fights with Hannah, he feels worse because she forces him to give up, but he always begs for forgiveness because he doesn't want to lose her. As he gets closer to his friends and doesn't tell them about Hannah, he starts to feel guilty about not telling them how important she is to him. In one day, Michael sees Hannah from afar while he is at the pool. He hesitates before getting up because he doesn't know what to do. But just then, she's gone. Hannah isn't in her building, with her boss, or at the citizens' registration office the next day. After asking around, he finds out that she turned down a raise and moved away. Michael feels guilty and thinks that her leaving was because he betrayed her and didn't act quickly enough. Part 2 starts with Michael's fight to get over the pain of losing Hannah, who keeps coming back to him in his dreams and thoughts. He seems to be moving on with his pain and guilt as time goes on, putting on a mask of arrogant superiority. He is good at making friends and keeping relationships, but he can be cold and overly sensitive at times. After 6 years, Michael is a young law student who is studying a case about the death camps for his class. Michael and his friends become zealous crusaders who want to find out what the Third Reich did wrong. The students are angry at both the people who directly committed the crimes and the people who stood by and did nothing when the Nazis were in power and who let them back into society after the war. In short, they are angry at the previous generation. The kids go to the trial once a week as part of their class. When the suspects' names are called in court, Michael learns that Hannah is one of the former Nazi guards who is being tried. But he felt nothing when he heard this news, even though Hannah's leaving had hurt him before. During her preliminary hearing, Hannah says that she turned down a promotion at her factory job right before she became a prison guard. This makes it look like she joined the SS willingly, if not enthusiastically. Hannah's lawyer doesn't do much to help her fix this bad first impression, and Hannah is still being held because she didn't show up to court when she was supposed to. Michael goes to the trial every day and always keeps an eye on Hannah, while his friends only go once a week. As Michael sees more and more horrible things over a long period of time, he starts to feel numb and mentally distant, just like Holocaust survivors and even perpetrators who see horrible things all the time. Hannah and the other 4 women are mostly accused of locking hundreds of women and girls in a church that was on fire and choosing 60 people every month to kill. Hannah has a bad trial. She keeps contradicting the indictment, even though she had a chance to read it before the trial started, which makes the already bad image she made even worse. She also doesn't seem to understand how bad what she did at the concentration camp was. When the judge asks Hannah if she knew she was killing people, she seems only concerned with getting the barracks clean and not at all with the fact that she sent people to their deaths. Hannah denies some charges, but she accepts others that she thinks are true, even if they mean she is guilty. She says, for instance, that she knew her prisoners would die. Hannah's lawyers use her confessions against her, saying that she was in charge of the other guards, the most guilty and cruel, and the only one who knew the prisoners were going to die. They talk about Hannah's special prisoners, which were young girls that she would spend the evenings with before moving them to Auschwitz and making sure they had better food and a place to sleep. Now, a Jewish woman who lived through the church fire with her mother remembers a secret that one of Hannah's favorites had told her. Hannah had not raped the girls as everyone thought, but instead had made them read to her. Hannah and her lawyer don't take advantage of the woman's evidence, even though it gives them a good chance to win the court's sympathy. When the judge asks the suspects why they didn't open the church doors, most of them say they were busy with something else, even though it was said that they were guarding the church to keep the prisoners from getting out. The women say that the report is not true, and one of the defendants says that Hannah wrote the report to hide something. She tells the judge, though, that they all agreed on what to write in the report. An expert is called in by the prosecutor to match the defendant's handwriting to that of the report. Hannah admits that she wrote the report. While Michael is thinking about whether or not to tell the judge that Hannah can't read or write, he figures that she would probably get a shorter prison sentence if he did. Hannah, on the other hand, definitely doesn't want to be seen as illiterate, and Michael asks his father for advice as a philosopher. His father tells him that he can think he knows what is best for his friend, but he can't do it behind her back because it would be disrespectful to her. Instead, he should try to persuade her to do what is right for her. But Michael isn't happy with this answer because he doesn't think he's ready to meet Hannah in person. Michael makes the choice to see the judge, but he can't bring himself to see Hannah. While he talks to the judge, he doesn't bring up Hannah or the fact that she can't read or write. Hannah is given a life sentence at the end of the hearing. In Part 3, Michael spends most of his time ignoring other people and obsessively studying after the trial is over. This keeps the numbness that he felt during the trial. Even though Michael is shy, he agrees to go on a ski trip with his friends. Michael gets a fever while he is mentally numb and doesn't care about the cold. But once he gets better, he remembers the pain and horror of the trial. The student movement is already going strong by the time Michael leaves school, and the narrator thinks about how hard it is for his generation to deal with our shared guilt over the Nazi past. Like most people his age, Michael blamed his parents for everything. Michael understands that his parents are not to blame in the end, but Hannah is, and he feels bad that he chose and loved her. Michael gets married to his girlfriend Gertrude when she gets pregnant while he is a law clerk. Because they are married, Michael never tells her about Hannah, but he thinks a lot about how Gertrude is like Hannah. The marriage only lasts 5 years, and Michael feels bad that he made his daughter Julia go through the split. This makes him more honest about Hannah in his relationships. But he doesn't seem happy with how the women have responded to his past with Hannah, and he stops talking about her in the end. After the split, Michael can't settle down and can't stop thinking about Hannah. In order to pass the time, he records himself reading books out loud to her and sends her the tapes. Even though the tapes are Michael's way of talking to Hannah, he never writes anything personal on them. After 4 years, Hannah writes Michael a thank you card by hand. Michael is glad that Hannah has finally learned to read and write, but he feels bad that it took her so long and slowed down her life. Michael never replies to the notes that Hannah sends him about her life or the books she's reading. He will keep sending her tapes, though, for another 10 years, or until her parole board releases her. When Hannah's jail warden writes Michael a letter asking for his help when Hannah gets out, Michael isn't sure if he should help because he still can't face Hannah. He agrees to help her find an apartment and a job, but he doesn't go see her in jail or write her letters. The warden calls him after a year to tell him that Hannah will be free in a week. Michael is shocked to find Hannah to be an old woman when he finally goes to the jail. He can't find the woman he used to love in her. It's strange and sad when they see each other again. Even though Hannah is glad to see him, they both know they can't keep up the friendship they built over the cassette tapes. Michael is still wary of the trial and asks her if she has thought about her time in the SS since they were together. By saying that only the dead can call her to account, Hannah avoids answering the question. She then tells Michael that the dead come to see her every night in jail. Michael, on the other hand, thinks this is a too easy excuse and secretly feels that he should also blame Hannah. Michael decides to call Hannah at the jail the day before he picks her up the following week. He wants her to plan what she wants to do the following day. He sees that Hannah's voice still sounds young when she makes fun of him. Helen kills herself the next day. The guard shows Michael Hannah his cell and says that Hannah had been reading books by survivors and about the concentration camps. Michael starts to cry when he sees that Hannah has saved a newspaper picture of his high school graduation. He knows that Hannah loved him very much. He is told by the guard that Hannah left a will. She asked Michael to give the daughter who had survived the church fire the money in her bank account and some money in her tea tin. After a few months, Michael goes to see the Jewish woman in New York to tell her what happened. The woman won't take direct responsibility for Hannah's money and won't let it be given to a Holocaust group either, because that would make Hannah excuse. She does, however, take Hannah's tea tin because it makes her think of the tea tin that held gifts from her youth but was taken from her at a concentration camp. The woman tells Michael that he can give the money to any charity he wants. Before making his first and only visit to Hannah's grave, Michael makes a donation to the Jewish League Against Illiteracy using the funds that were given to him in Hannah's name.
About the author. Bernhard Schlink was born in 1944. When Schlink was young, faith and theology were very important to him. They had a German theologian, professor, and minister for a father named Edmund. Every night after dinner, the family would read the Bible together as a tradition. Bernhard and his family moved to Heidelberg, where he grew up, after his father was fired from his job as a teacher for being anti-Nazi. Schlink went to school at the Free University in West Berlin in the 1960s. While there, he saw the wave of student riots that hit Germany. The student protests showed a conflict between generations that would later become a major theme in Schlink's book The Reader. Schlink got his J.D. from the University of Heidelberg and married Hadwig Arnold in the 1970s. He got his Ph.D. from Freiburg University in 1981 and left right away to become a professor. In the 1980s, when Schlink was still a young professor, he started to feel like his life was missing something. He wrote and released a series of post-war detective books while he was a judge in North Rhine-Westphalia. The books are about a former Nazi prosecutor who changes his ways and becomes a private detective. He wrote The Reader in 1995, which was also about life after the Holocaust and got a lot of good reviews. A lot of literary awards were given to The Reader, and it became a worldwide hit. It was turned into a highly acclaimed and award-winning movie in 2008. Since The Reader was a big hit, Schlink has put out a number of books, both fiction and law writing.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.